recorded for YouTube as well. That way those people who make sure that they only are able to join us on YouTube will get to see this too. So if you are watching this on YouTube later, ask your comments in the question below and I'll make sure to get back to you as well. My internet connection is also funky tonight, so if it doesn't work out, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. So to the point of the matter currently, to the heart of worship. There is a lot of different contexts going on in forming our decision for how we will reopen. The first one is that you have probably heard a myriad of ways in which churches should open. From the federal government to state government to local government. And then we have the fun part of being United Methodist. And we have a bishop. And we have a conference. And we have district superintendents. And then you have pastors within that. And with all of those things mixed together, how is Godfrey First going to come back to the heart of worship? Before we get started, worship never closed. It just moved. That's the one thing that I want to make sure everybody knows and remembers, is that we've been continuing to have worship on Sundays, right? And even with our moving from the building to online, worship never stopped. So that's one good thing. The next thing that's going to be going on is whose authority are we following? Well, I'm hopeful that we're following God's authority in all of this. As I've reminded people, when this was first a thing, when COVID-19 began to appear in St. Clair County, we closed church before anybody told us to. Before the state government told us to, before Trump told us to, before anybody told us to. We closed because we were trying to make sure that we would do the least amount of harm possible. So we're still in that same spirit of we want to do the least amount of harm as possible. So with that, we are, though, just so that you know who and what we are following, Bruce has mentioned it in the comments down below, we are following the bishop's Coming to the Heart of Worship document that was released a few weeks ago. That is what Godfrey First will be focused in with coming back to the heart of worship. For those of you that are following along at home to know what phase we are currently in phase 2, and I believe tomorrow we will be in phase 3. And then everything will change, but it doesn't change for us so much. What happens with the phase 3 is that we can meet in groups of 10 or less. However, we worship, as I've spoken of in the past before, we worship on a slow Sunday, 150, and on a really good Sunday, upwards of 100 or 180, and we've had as high as 200. So we feasibly cannot offer 20 to 25 services a week in order to meet that need. So phase 3, at this time, it will be continued to have what I wish I could remember which congregant called it this, but we're going to continue to have podcast church. And I have really fallen in love with that name because that's what it feels like. I mean, I've got Joe as a guest over here and so on and so forth. So we are moving forward with that style of worship through the month of June. The earliest that we could move into phase 4 would be July. And now if we move forward in phase 4 into July, then things will change. How many people can be there and so on in the building changes. So that's when that would change, and we'll talk more about phase 4 in just a second. One of the things I forgot to bring up at the beginning of the last time we spoke was the lay leader of Godfrey First United Methodist Church and the SPRC chair, and by the way, that's Marcia and Barb, if you're wondering who it is, did some math and trying to figure out how many people attend church are over or between 60 and 65 or over that attend. According to their numbers that they crunched for me, that would mean that if we worship 150, 90% of our congregation is over that 60 to 65 age number. And if you keep going up, of course, if there's more congregants that show up, 160, it goes down by 5%. If we worship 170, it goes down by another 5%. So that just gives you a little understanding of the age of our congregation. So this gets to Bruce's question too down below. Bruce asked, I'm going to go click over here. So when will the 65 plus crowd be able to return to worship per the Returning to the Heart of Worship plan? Great question. Anytime that they want to and feel comfortable to do so. It is a strong should, that 65 and up number, and what it says in the Coming to the Heart of Worship. I, Pastor Jay, will not be standing at the door with a broom shushing people who are over 65 away. That is not my plan. My plan, though, is to let anybody over the age of 65 know that they may want to consider to continue worshiping online. That is what the plan recommends. That's what we will be recommending. But that is what we are talking about with that 65. It is a strong recommendation, but don't worry. There's not going to be somebody with a broomstick or a shepherd's crook grabbing people who are over 65 and telling them not to attend worship. So that's the first part that I want to address with that question there, is that it'll be up to everybody's discretion. You're all adults. You know your level of risk. But that leads me to the next thing that I want to lift up. And then I'm going to turn it over to Joe for a second. And what I want to lift up is this little chart that I've been seeing online. And what it is that it's a chart and it has a bunch of circles on it. But here's the pastor in the middle, and then it has, you can't open the church building yet. It's a huge health risk. You're wrong if you do so. It's all a big hoax, a conspiracy, a media frenzy. Read this article, this link. Don't be afraid. Here are the 25 things you need to do if you want to meet in the church building again. My family is going to stay home for a while before coming back. Sorry, can't be there. We need to open the church building. I need to be there and see everyone. What are you waiting for? I will let you know that Pastor Jay has heard at least one congregant talk about all 5 of those circles. Yeah, and I apologize for the lag that's happening. I don't know what's going on with my home connection tonight. But with that, I've heard all those different things from different people. So the gist of what's going on here that I want to make sure and lift up for you all tonight is that I hear you, and I've heard a lot of different opinions on this matter. But here's what it will look like. Phase 3, as I said, will probably not be meeting because 10 or less is not enough. But I'm going to turn it over to Joe for a second so I can get off. I think I can get off the microphone here for a second. Joe has been interested in beginning to see if people would have an interest in a new way of worshiping. Joe, would you mind speaking to that a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've come across through different youth pastor Facebook pages and feeds is small group worship. There are several churches across the country, actually across the world, that are making plans to have small group watch parties in their homes, where they can get together in groups of 10 or less, view worship together, have a discussion, fellowship, whatever they want. Some people have talked about having lunch after. Some people have talked about having breakfast before or during. So they're having some kind of fellowship together. There's one church that spoke up. They've been doing this plan for about 3 years, and they can't imagine going back to the other way. They meet in big church one Sunday a month, probably the first Sunday of the month. And then the other Sundays of that month, they're doing their small groups. And they get so much more fellowship together. That's definitely something we can do in this current phase, and well, the one coming up here tomorrow in phase 3. And pardon me if the dog is excited again, or nervous or something. Either way, she's barking. But we can still meet in groups of 10 if we wanted to for this time period.
So that's one idea that we've come up with. We've also mentioned in this group on Sunday, when we had this the last time, that there was interest in small groups. But I'm going to lift up a famous phrase taught to be one of my congregants at Richview United Methodist Church that Joe is probably sick of hearing by now, but it's one of my favorite phrases, which is, we and us don't do anything. We and us don't do nothing. You and I do things, though. I do things, you do things. But if we're going to do any of these things, whether it be fresh expressions, basically is what Joe is talking about, doing home churches and beginning to see what it means to invite a friend out to your house and say, hey, let's have pancakes, or, whatever else it might be. We can say that, and we can all say it's a great idea, and we can. But it's only you and I that are going to make it a reality. So if there's somebody that wants to start a small group, if there's somebody that wants to start a home worship space, we need to make sure that it's not we, it's you and I. And you can talk with me, you can talk with Joe, you can talk with anybody you feel comfortable with in church leadership about starting one of these ministries. But that would be an idea. So with that, I'm going to move into what, Joe, just so that you know, so I can telegraph my move here, we're going to talk about what phase 4 looks like. So I apologize, we're going to do phase 3 first. Phase 3 is going to be all about this brand new camera that the church bought. This is going to allow for worship to happen in a new way. We're going to move from what I'm affectionately calling the podcast style church into a more produced worship experience. You don't need to know the technical details of this camera, but because of it, the long and the short of it is it lets our sound system at church go through it, and then the video and the sound will be really good, and they'll be linked, and then we can produce a more produced worship service. I.e., if we wanted to have somebody come into church and record their testimony, they can do it. If somebody wanted to come in and record their liturgy at the church behind the pulpit and have as many takes as they want, they can do it. If the praise team wants to sing and then be recorded and then it be played on Sunday, we can do it. And this is our first step towards that, is this little camera that will allow us to capture the video and the sound and make them look better. So phase 3 is going to be all about testing this stuff because, as Joe has probably also heard too many times, I did not go to seminary to learn how to navigate a church through COVID-19 or any global pandemic. Wasn't one of the classes offered. So we're all learning this on the fly. So with that, we'll be learning how to use this little camera in order to begin to increase our worship production. And with that, be able to, after we go back into the church in whatever shape or form, we will continue to live stream. Because the other thing to lift up here before I move on is that I have spoken with people that fall into that bubble I just showed you of, hey, Pastor Jay, we've been coming every Sunday for years, but we're not comfortable coming back. And we don't know when we'll be comfortable coming back. And that's absolutely fine too. So know that whenever we do have church, it may look like a completely different landscape than you're used to. Because there may be people that you've been sitting next to for ages, and they're not there. Because they don't feel comfortable coming to church, and that's absolutely fine. But that's what it looks like and what it could look like. So that's phase 3.
I'm going to jump in real quick just to add to that. We've talked about this throughout this whole process, Pastor Jay and I have, that the way church has always been for most churches is you come on Sunday morning. And if you miss Sunday morning because you're sick or the weather or soccer games or cheer competitions or vacation or whatever, you miss church. Now, I know Jay has done this, and I know Pastor Steve did this before, where you record the message and you get that out, which is great. That's fabulous. But this will give us the ability, because we purchase new streaming licenses, this will give us the ability to record the entire service and get it out to people. So if you can't be there on Sunday morning, or you don't feel comfortable being there on Sunday morning, or maybe you just prefer to worship in your pajamas and don't want to show everybody that you wear Garfield pajamas, then you can do it at home and still have that experience on this. So I think, as Pastor Jay said, going forward, this is going to be something we're going to do all the time. A lot of churches have been doing this already and will be doing it as well. So
we kind of got pushed into this, and that's okay too. And some churches were absolutely ready for this, 110%. There are churches that COVID-19 changed nothing other than everybody stays home. That was the only thing it changed. Right. For us, it literally changed how we do pretty much everything. And we're moving forward with how to do that. So phase 3, like I said, small groups, you and I need to figure that out. And yet again, I'll do my famous one, not you, you. Whoever you is, you and I need to figure it out. Home worship, same thing. Yeah, not you, but you and I need to figure it out. And then when we're done with phase 3, hopefully we'll be able to have figured out how this little thing works and begin to really capture really nice audio, video, and plugging it into the worship that we're doing now. So that's phase 3. So we have a month more of the, like I say, the podcast style church. But then we get to move into.
I'm going to jump in real quick one more time, Pastor Jay.
Sure.
And I don't want to steal any of your thunder if you're going to talk about this later, because I'm sure you will. You've talked about you and I and you and you and you and we and everybody putting this together. Pastor Jay and I talked yesterday about putting together a coming back task force. I forget what we talked
reopening task force is what we're talking about.
Reopening task force or something like that. So we're going to put a group together of people that, as Pastor Jay would like to say, make church happen on Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole round of yeah. So we're going to get together here in the next few days and talk about ways that we can do that. With that, if you've not looked at your newsletter yet, and this is stealing your thunder, sorry. If you've not looked at your newsletter yet, at the end, there's a survey on what you would like to see. So I know you'll talk about that later, but that's where the task force is going to need your feedback.
Yes.
You have to have your feedback, but you can talk about that at the end.
Yeah, and there are 19 screens out there. I have no idea how many people, but there are 19 screens right now as I'm talking, and I know y'all talk to each other, and that's great. And if you have people that you know their opinion, tell them to share it, because if we don't, we won't move forward. We'll continue to be where we're at, which I don't think is awful. But if people are clamoring for something new, they need to let us know. We can't do this. Like, for example, on that survey is a checkbox for are you comfortable coming to church? Period. Because there are some that are going to check no. There are going to be some that have 13 checks on it to show me how excited they are for church to be back, and that's okay. So, but we're going to move on to probably the most complicated phase out of all of this, and it's phase 4. Phase 4 is where hopefully that will be July. Now remember, if the state's numbers climb up again or we fail to meet certain criteria to go on to a new phase, we'll be back and either continue to be in phase 3 or we may even roll back into phase 2. I am not an epidemiologist, nor am I a prophet. I have no idea. So with that, why I'm lifting it up is to point out that when we get into phase 3, whenever that happens, it'll be 50 or less. That's the goal. With the following criteria, and here's where I drop the mic. You probably already know this, but if you don't, be ready to buckle your seatbelt in. Currently, and I make sure I emphasize that word currently, indoor and outdoor worship, unless it's drive-in, which we'll talk about in a second, unless it's drive-in, indoor and outdoor worship, you will need to social distance, 6 feet apart. You will need to wear a mask. You will need to pump in with hand sanitizer and pump out with hand sanitizer. And there will be no singing. And that may be news to you, or you may have already heard it. But that is what the bishop and I, because yet again, I'm not here to throw Bishop under a bus. I agree with Bishop on this one. Singing, as far as all the articles that Joe's going to talk about in a second here, lead us to believe that singing is a way to spread this disease faster than anything else. So with that, when we worship with 50 or less, and you'll have to pre-register for church, however weird that feels. And on Sunday, Joe saw me get a little passionate about this. But when we do that, this is my biggest concern. One of two extremes could happen, or something in the middle. Either I go into a church and I preach to a family of 1, or I go to church and let's make up an example. Everybody gets pre-registered. Everybody's fabulous. We're going to use the Hanscom and the Leonard family for this one. And the Hanscom family comes in on time for the reservation. And they get to go in and they make the church up to 45 people. Now Joe, or the Leonard family, has a reservation for 4, but they don't show up on time. And when that happens, a new family comes in that says, we're really excited to be here, and we're just so thrilled to be here. Can we come in? And we say, absolutely, you can come in. And they have 5 people. Well, we're at 50. Now, I may not be shooing people with 65 out the door with a broomstick, but we will not be worshiping over 50, period. So when that happens, now the Leonards show up. They miss their reservation, and whoever is standing there is going to be looking at the book going, well, I'm sorry that you missed your reservation. We have an opening next Sunday. And that's where it gets tricky, folks, is that I worry, and I'm just going to lift it as worry because I don't know what this is going to look like. But I can tell you that I can see that scenario happening, or far worse, which would be that the Hanscoms and Joe were on time and a brand new family comes to church and we have to say, yeah, no, we can't let you in. That's just not going to happen today. And that is the tension that I think I want to make sure that I lift up for you all to see, is that I could see going to church and worshiping to 3 people. I could also go to church and see, like, especially for those first couple of Sundays, that we have to turn people away. And that's where the weighing in phase 4 comes down, which is why Joe and I have been talking so much about doing the reopening task force and seeing what all y'all are comfortable with as far as worship and so on. And knowing, too, that no matter how this goes, no matter what phase we're in, no matter how many people we're worshiping, social distance, mask, no singing, communion, no idea. I'll try to figure it out later. Baptism, no idea. I'll try to figure it out later. And that's where we're at with what phase 4 will look like. It will not look like what I've been coining as the Sunday morning worship experience. That will not be what's happening on Sundays. Now, I say currently because Joe may not even know this because I forgot to tell him beforehand, but the bishop will be releasing something about outdoor worship tomorrow. I do know that, but I don't know. I have no idea what it entails. So all I know is that unless it gets delayed, we will be hearing something from the bishop about outdoor worship tomorrow. So we can go from there. But I'm going to kick it over to Joe because I've asked Joe to do the research on the singing end of it so that we can understand a little bit of why we are moving towards no singing.
So first of all, for clarification, the outdoor worship thing has been something we've talked about. That's not drive-in. That's utilizing the big field that we have out there because you can definitely socially distance there. So here's what's going on with singing. In a nutshell, and this is in the newsletter that Barbie mailed out today too. So I encourage you to go and read everything in it, but especially what I wrote.
Yes, very much what Joe wrote.
On May 5th, various national and international singing organizations came together for a webinar to discuss the effects of singing, especially in closed classrooms, rehearsal halls, performance halls. Basically, it boils down to singers are super spreaders because when you sing, you take deeper breaths, you project. So actually, the study is covering people that are loud talkers, yellers, as well as singing. Part of that group there were medical specialists that were on it. I can't say this word. This is my 3rd attempt to try to say it. Otolaryngologist. She's Dr. Lucinda Halstead. She's the president-elect of the Performing Arts Medical Association. And then there was another, Dr. Ronald Milton, who is a leading researcher on infectious bioaerosols, exhaled breath analysis, and respiratory epidemiology. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, their claim right now, and again, they emphasize during all of their video, there was a 2.5-hour webinar, and I can send you the link if you want to watch 2.5 hours of them talking about this. Singing aerosols, the spittle that comes out, travels farther than a cough or a sneeze. I don't get it either, but it does. And singers, especially in groups, choirs, are standing so close to each other that there's no way you can have enough distance. There was one study I read that that aerosol from a singer's voice could travel between 20 and 25 feet, and we can't separate 20 to 25 feet.
Yeah, we won't have any room for social distancing for the congregation at that point because that would be pushing everybody back.
Yeah, so that goes into congregations too. You can't stand that far apart, in congregations, which is why singing isn't really allowed, encouraged, whatever you want to say, recommended in church right now. Last Thursday, there was an announcement made. There's a coalition of 50 international performing arts organizations that's going to commission a study on this. And these range from, I pulled the article up, College Music Society, College Band Directors, the Drum Corps International, National Association for Music Education, Educational Theater Association, Opera America. There's all kinds of organizations coming together to study brass and woodwind instruments, because you're spitting into your instruments in a band room, a closed area. Theater, when you're projecting out on stage, you're speaking in a louder tone, so it's traveling farther. So this is a study that's going to start, or they've started, or whatever. Or, like I said, over 50 different organizations that are part of this to determine what's the safest and best way for us to get back into rehearsal halls and performance venues and classrooms. I did reach out to a teacher today at Alton High who is involved in theater, and she has said that, yeah, they're working on a plan right now to address how they're going to look at band, chorus, theater, and all that on the high school level because of these studies that are going on. So that's where we are on that. So it's a little more than just, I put my closing statement on the newsletter. It's more than just the bishop being overly cautious. This is, there's a lot of data they still have to collect. And to err on the side of caution, all of these organizations worldwide have just said, stop. Just don't do it right now until we can get more stuff figured out. But they do recommend that we proceed with expert research and opinion with optimism. That, we like to throw around the term new normal. Personally, I'm not a fan of that. For me personally, this is a temporary normal, because in a bigger picture, this isn't going to last forever. There is going to be an end. It could be in a few months. It could be in a couple of years. We don't know for sure. Nobody knows. But I'm confident that things are going to return to some better form of normalcy sooner than later. But that's where we are on singing. If you have any questions about that, you can, of course, put them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them during this. You can text me or call me or email me separately if you'd like. And I'm happy to pass this information on. Pastor Don texted me at 6:30 this morning wanting this research for himself. So thank you, Pastor Don, for that wake-up call. And so, no, I was awake. Anyway, so that's it for the singing and stuff.
Yeah. So thank you, Joe. I really appreciate you doing that research for us so that we can see that, like you said, it's not just the bishop. This is a complicated, evolving issue. I have also tried to move away from new norm. I know I've used it in the past, but it's different. That's the way we're going to have to approach it. It's going to be different for a season. I guarantee you, to be a little theological for just a heartbeat, and then I'll get back to the topic at hand. Your faith has gone through different seasons. I guarantee it. And just like that, we're going through a different season as the corporate body of the church, worshiping the way in which we are currently. So that's where we're at. So phase 4, more of the brick and mortar to it. So what are we actually talking about? If we do a Sunday morning worship experience, I am not opposed to offering multiple worship services, more than just our 2 that we currently offer. However, with the current understanding of no singing, we would be coming to church. I'm going to describe it. I haven't done this yet. I'm going to describe what a church service looks like in my mind, which would be is that you would arrive on time, because there'd be no pre-mingling, right? You would arrive on time, which is going to be hard for me. I'm going to tell you, because I'm always late and I'm the pastor. And you're going to walk through the door. There's going to be somebody holding it in. There's somebody that's going to be writing down your name and who you are and all that, and then telling you what seat you can sit in. You will sit down with your family unit. somewhere in the church building. I don't know where. And it will be by tabletop. There's no other way that I can think to do it. It'll be, Hanscom table of 6. And you will be led to an area where there are 6 seats in a row, and you'll have a seat. And you will sit there. And then you will have your mask on. You will wear your mask the whole service. You will then read along, maybe talking, maybe not. I don't know yet. You can, if you're more than welcome, to do some responsive reading. But at the same time, that does risk infection, but I'm okay with it. That's what I'm going to let you know. So, long story short there, you'll be at your chair, and then there'll be music, and it'll come up on the 2 screens on the side. And then there'll be the praise team singing a song or a hymn being sung. And then we'll go recorded on this, but pre-recorded on the screens. Then it will turn off. Then we will have some form of passing of the peace where we will remain seated. And we will look and give people peace signs or wave or say hello, but no yelling. It's not going to feel like church, folks. You know what I mean? I am used to yelling across the room to get attention that my child is eloping. I am very used to it when I see my blonde-headed one running away. And so that will be discouraged. There will be offering baskets all around the church such that you can just drop your offering in and walk away. The sermon will be done. I do not know yet if I will or will not be wearing a mask while I preach. I more than likely will be wearing a mask while I preach, but I may not. I may instead buy, have you been seeing those things at Schnucks, the plexiglass spit shields? I may buy one of those for the pulpit, and then I'll be behind the pulpit. I'll deliver the sermon. We'll watch more songs that have been pre-recorded. We will exit in an orderly fashion, and that will be church. There'll be no mingling either, because I'm going to try to discourage you in the parking lot. You're your own human being, so you do you. But I will, as always, will say on the benediction, and now we're going to leave in this methodical way, and remember, don't mingle in the parking lot. And that's what church is going to look like and what church is going to feel like. And it's not going to, yet again, I really thank you, Joe, for bringing that up because I was planning on doing it myself. I'm moving away from the word new normal. What I'm moving towards is that it's going to feel very different. It is not going to be what we are used to. And that's what a typical service, as far as I can tell, will look like when we get back. Now, like I said, there are things developing with outside worship and so on, so it may look a little different. But currently, that's what it looks like. Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so with that said, and that's one of the things this task force, whenever we get together, is going to have to be addressing. A couple points. I've heard of the same thing happen, of course, at other churches. They're taking reservations. Now, churches that worship fewer than 50, which is, 60% of our conference? Something like that?
75, and I know there might be somebody in the comments that can correct me, but I know it's over 50% worship under 50.
Yeah, so they don't have these things to worry about, but the ones, and not even churches that aren't in our conference, the United Methodist Church, they're doing the same thing. They've set up an online system where you can make your reservation or you can call in and do whatever. So we got to figure all that out. I've seen pictures of churches. There's a church in Florida that I follow. The pastor there, it's a Methodist church. She did her message from the front pew last Sunday, and you can see blue painter's tape up and down all the pews. They have their pews sectioned off in 6-foot sections. So, I mean, there's all kinds of ways we can do it. We're fortunate that we have chairs in ours, so we can remove quite a few of the chairs and space them out a little better. And that's where, we're just going to have to come together. But with that said, it's also what we need on the survey part. Because as Jay said, on a good Sunday, we have 180 people. We know 180 people aren't going to come to worship. There was a family on yesterday on our discussion that said they're not coming back till 5. Probably they're just till 5. There's no need for them to. So we know there's going to be.
And I know that you know this, and I know that everybody listening, but I'm going to say it, and that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. But we need to know what to plan for. If there's only 100 of you planning on coming, then we don't need to worry about 5 different worship services. We only need to worry about 3 or whatever, 2 or 3. So it's important that we get as much information from you guys as we can as soon as we can, so we can start planning accordingly to make it as easy and seamless as possible for everybody.
Because the end of the day is that the other analogy that I've been making, I must be wanting to go to a restaurant. I could offer a Reuben sandwich, but if my community doesn't want to eat a Reuben sandwich, my Reuben sandwich is going to rot. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing is that no matter what we do, we're going to have to make sure that what we offer is what y'all want. Because if we don't have that, then we're just going to be, twiddling our thumbs. So that's where we're at. So phase 4. Now, we don't know exactly what it looks like. The survey should help. If there are volunteers interested out there in the congregation, because Pastor Jay and Joe and Barb Hammond and the leadership of the church on church council, we can't all make this happen by ourselves. So if there are people that are interested in doing some of these small group ministries, these at-home worship ministries, if there are people that are interested in making sure that we actually get enough information to see what people are interested in, we need to know. We need to have that conversation. We need to start having it now, because we have the grace of being so large that we cannot even entertain the understanding of worshiping 10 or less, because that's not feasible with our church. No matter we're just too big. This won't happen. So we have until phase 4. So once we're there, we can then move forward with that information. So phase 5, we don't know when that's going to be, but phase 5 is, as somebody at the conference keeps telling me, is the all clear. And when we have that, that's when church will look very much like it did. And I always like to lift up the silver lining. We will have Christmas, Easter, Pentecost, remembrance of baptism, pancake, breakfast. I don't care what we're doing. Whenever we're able to all come back. And if y'all don't know what a hymn sing is, we're going to have a hymn sing. And it's going to be exciting. And I'm very hopeful and looking forward to that day. Because as Joe mentions, this is just a season. This is just a temporary thing. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun. But we'll get through this together. I see something from a very intelligent person, my wife, here.
Some chick named Erin is commenting again.
She's doing something here. Let me see. Yeah, so, and I mentioned that at the beginning, that we have a lot of people over the 65, and even with those people over 65, we have a lot of people with comorbid issues. And then the other thing to lift up too is that unless some volunteer out there comes up with some magical, beautiful idea, I don't know when we're doing childcare again. Probably not till phase 5. Even in phase 4, to keep kids safe from abuse, just to name it and claim it, right? We have to have 2 people of different family units in the room. Then we have to have children, and then you mix all those different households together. And then it's the risk of COVID, everything else. So, but yeah, that's the other part too, is that even when we do offer it, some of our young families may not want to come because they have young kids. I love the little blonde one, but you guys have gotten to really know him during these children chats. And I don't know if I would feel comfortable coming to a church and having to keep a hold of him the whole time. He's good for about a 5-minute spell, and that is just about it. And as far as social distancing goes, he will not understand in any way, shape, or form. So that's some of the stuff there to lift up. There we have another question in here. And yes, Bruce, the new video worship will be on YouTube. As far as live, I'll have to talk to church council. Unfortunately, that would mean we would have to spend more money, because to stream to 2 services live, I need a different kind of account. I won't bore you with the technical details, but you can't stream the way in which we are doing live worship now. We can't stream live to 2 different services. We can only choose one or the other. But we could purchase a third-party thing that allows me to send it to the third party, and then it can send it out to the other 2. So we could potentially do YouTube Live and Facebook Live at the same time. But I got to talk to church council about buying that. Yet again, I told you I wouldn't get technical. The Venmo is what it would be called, the application that I would use. I've done research on it. So, Right,
But
and then
it will be recorded and put on YouTube.
yes, no matter what, no matter, because we're doing that now. The whole service is being recorded and put on
Right.
Facebook. But as far as live, we'll have to have a conversation with the technical team. But we just so that we know. I mean, I'm looking down here, and I won't name the family. You all can see it in the comments. I don't like to lift up people unless they want to be lifted up. But there's a family saying they won't be back till Phase 5, and that's okay. And that's what's going to be different too, right? So. So yeah,
Some of you on here know my dad pretty well. My dad has a mild, rare, whatever form of leukemia, and he's still been ordered by his doctor last week that quarantine. He's not going anywhere. And those of you that know him know that he's either at McDonald's, at home, or at church. He doesn't go anywhere else.
Right.
And it's really killing him to not be out and active and all that, but he is absolutely 100% not going anywhere until it's safer, at least for him to do it. He even said the same thing to me last week, that he's not going back to church until Phase 5 probably. So
yeah. And as Pastor Jay, real quick, if I was family Hanscom rather than Pastor Jay, it would be a very hard decision for me. I'm not saying I would go one way or the other. But if this was not Pastor Jay, who of course is going to make worship happen for Godfrey First United Methodist Church, and this was Father Jay and Mother Erin working together to figure out what's best for our family, you all know that Jonas has asthma, and that would play a role in our decision too. So that's where it gets tricky, and so we understand. Don't worry about that. So,
yep, and that's to reiterate. That's why. We've invested in the equipment, and the streaming licenses and all that, so we can offer the online stuff better than we're doing it now. I think we're doing a pretty good job now, but it'll be better than what we're doing now with all that. Mickey, you put down there, I would like to know that too, and I'm not sure what it is you'd like to know.
Fortunately, I have the message, and she was replying to Bruce.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So she was asking if Bruce's comment. So yeah, the YouTube live thing is absolutely fine, and if people are interested in it, yet again, let me know, because I can look into getting a Venmo account and then figuring out how to send it to Venmo and then have it go out to the other two at the same time. I just haven't done it. See, Erin is much braver than I am. Phase 5, Mother Erin would be, that's where she would be. She would be that she would not come back to church until Phase 5. So so that's the thing, the considerations to think about with all of this. So yeah. Joe, have I missed anything that we need to talk about today for coming back to the heart of worship?
I don't think so. I think we've covered all. Are there any other questions anybody has?
We have a couple of minutes here. While we give you the time to think about the answers or questions for the coming back to the heart of worship, Erin at 5:00 today is hosting an Usborne party, and I'm going to be there. I may be putting children to sleep at the same time, but I'm doing it. I'm going to be there, and we're going to be raising up funds and books for people to consider or to help out with the replacement or alternative VBS project that Erin's come up with, which is Staycation Blessing Vines. As I always joke, it's really hard to come up with something for the letter V. So we'll be doing that. We'll be getting those books. It's at 8:00 if I didn't say the right thing. It's at 8. I'm sorry. And if you want to go there and support this ministry, brand new, for trying to connect with kids even during this season of COVID-19, make sure you come out, and it'll be live on Facebook right after this is done, pretty much, because we're about done to wrap up. So
one thing I do want to add.
I've got a question, but you first, Joe.
Okay. Because I know I send the invitation out to GPS and Ignite families to be watching this too, so they may be watching it later. So I want them to know.
Thank you, Susan.
Yep. So here's what's happening. Ignite is still on hold, obviously, because of all the singing stuff that we talked about earlier. So that's going to be on hold. The other reason we're on hold is we don't know if there's going to be any crowds or audiences if we go anywhere. So we can't really go sing for an empty church, even if singing was allowed. And in phase 4, where there's groups of 50, we have 30 something kids in our group this year. So there'd still be no room for any audience. So Ignite is very much on hold. The summer season doesn't look all that great right now, but no decision officially has been made yet. We've not canceled our Branson trip yet at the end of July, but some decisions are going to be made here really soon. But the good thing about that, some people know this, uh, our musical this summer, it has a Christmas theme to it. So we're going to be a few months ahead of the game and getting ready for the Christmas season. So hopefully there'll be enough answers and enough things in place that we can do something by Christmas time. So we're going to keep that hope alive still. As far as GPS is concerned, for those watching for GPS, we are going to try to do something in June, getting together in groups of 10 or less. Since we have 30-ish or so, we can do that in 3 different lessons instead of 5 or 6 or 20 for worship. But we're going to try to do that through June. And then, of course, when we get into phase 4, hopefully in July, we can still get together as a full group. I'm really excited about getting the bishop's news tomorrow about outdoor worship, because that will definitely affect us, because we would absolutely get together soon with our group if we're given the green light to do so.
Yeah, and I don't know what that looks like, Joe. I have no idea.
Oh, I know, yeah. But I'll say, the kids have been great. We've been getting together on Zoom most Sundays, not every Sunday, but most Sundays, and we've had a pretty good response. We've still rehearsed with Ignite on Zoom. It's very difficult, but they're still getting together, and the dog's barking again. For those in the church that know, GPS usually takes the summer off because of Ignite, but now since Ignite is off, we're going to keep GPS going throughout the summer as of now. So we're looking forward to all that. So those of you in GPS Ignite watching this and all, if you got any questions, let me know. And thank you, Godfrey First, for giving us the support that we need.
Yeah, and then continued, as I say, we're in a season that I am excited that some of the ministry may have to be put on pause, but I'm excited to see what it looks like when it comes back. Some of the most blessed moments I've had at Godfrey First have actually been hearing Ignite sing. So, because you guys minister to the pastor. So I just want to let you know that. So,
and to me.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer some questions. Yes, yep. Mickey, Facebook Live will continue to be streamed here on Facebook Live pretty much forever. And what I mean by that, too, is the benefit of having this thing that I'm pointing at right now and having this thing right here, this white microphone. We'll never miss church again. If church has to be canceled because of snowstorm, guess what? We're going to just do podcast church, because you all know how to do it now. So I can say, hey, don't worry about not coming. You know what I mean? We'll be having church live here, ready to go. So that's one thing that, yes. Cody, your question, weddings, is you need to talk to me personally real quick, because I want to make sure that we make sure we get everybody out of here on time. Phase 3, 10 or less. Phase 4, I'd have to look at the thingamahopper. I think it might be 50, but do not quote me. I've got to double check the Coming to the Heart of Worship document, but I believe in phase 4 it could be 50 or less. But I know for a fact in phase 3 it's 10 or less, because it's the same. I hate to be this way, but it's for this. I know I looked up funerals, and it's the same for funerals. So then, are you there, Joe?
Sorry, I had myself muted because the dog barked. As a reminder, 50 or less is everybody in there.
Right, not family units.
Right, and not just, so you can't have, for a wedding, for example, 50 guests. You have to count the whole bridal party, the pastor, piano player, whatever musicians you have. You have to count everybody that's there. That's right. The tough part about that.
That is the tough part. So that's why in phase 3, it'd be particularly tough for a wedding with 10. It's even tougher for a funeral if the family is large. So it's the same thing applies there. And like I said, do not quote me on phase 4 with the 50 number. I think that's right, but don't quote me. I forgot to look. Down to Barb's question here. Right, she's lifting up the same point that I'm making, which is if the elderly are dissuaded from coming by, being told that they probably shouldn't come, how many is going to be there? That's a great question. I'll leave it right there. And then Bruce, yes, we are doing that currently. We are not dumping, that's not fair. Pouring is a much better better word, and that's what you used. A verb, there we go. We are pouring monies into making our church online service even better. We purchased, just so that you know that your pastor thinks ahead, I don't have the part near me, do I? I wish I could just pull it out, but I don't know where it is. We bought this camera, and what comes out of this camera is one kind of cord, but we made sure, or I made sure when I purchased it, that it's going to go into another kind of box to turn it into a different kind of cord. You don't need to know the specifics. Why I did that? Multiple cameras. We could begin to have our online worship service like you could have somebody in the front row to do a close-up on Joe while he has a solo, and then you can cut to the congregation singing and you can show that across, and you can do all those different things. So we have poured money into making worship better by starting off with this modest camera. It's modest, but what it does is it has the power to hook up to our current sound system at church. So we'll have this, and we could even have more, and we just have to buy one more part rather than repurchasing a bunch of stuff because I didn't plan ahead. I did. I hope that we can begin to see what our online worship can perform at. It can be incredible. It can be like any other church service has it, as long as we have the volunteers to run it and we have the technical know-how, because your pastor is treading water with all this technology stuff. I mean, I enjoy it. I can make it work if I have to. But as far as the finer details, particularly with the understanding of how sound works in a space, that goes above my head. You might as well be talking about me to, how to make a rocket ship go into space. It's the same thing. So, yes, I hear you, and we are trying to do that. And one of the ways is that we plan to have multiple cameras, and we're planning on being able to have good sound go through all those cameras to the point where it may even come to a thing where I don't know if I feel comfortable with it, but I'm okay with it, which would be we may end up recording our whole service, even the sermon, and then releasing a video rather than going live, if you understand the difference. Rather than it being me here at home pulling up videos and pulling up sound and doing everything like that, it may just be me putting a video into Venmo and hitting play or having it all set up so it plays at the right time. And then I could be down in the comments going, hey, good to see you this morning. Hey, good to see you this morning. That's a long time off, but we can get there. That's what other churches are doing. So we can get there too because we're planning ahead to do such. But yet again, the only way we can do that is either through technical hires, i.e. somebody that knows technology, or B, volunteers that are willing to learn how to do this, because even if we hire somebody that can be the know-it-all, the puppet master, we're still going to need somebody that can sit there with a tripod and swivel a camera. Anybody can do that, but we still need that volunteer, because that's what it's going to take. So yes, we are definitely looking into pouring more monies into it, and as long as I follow the YouTube tutorial correctly, we will start to have that this upcoming into the month of June. I can't promise it won't be for Pentecost, but I can say that hopefully in June, the first Sunday, we'll be able to have something. And I even have a little bit of a surprise cooked up that I haven't even told Joe about that I'm excited about. But you have to remember, I'm a history major. That may give you a clue as to what it is, but I'm excited about it. So anyway, I don't see any more question besides Joe's fervent comment for somebody more technologically savvy. So with that, church, I leave you. And don't forget, Aaron, 8 o'clock, right? Like in 2 minutes, Aaron's going to have this Usborne party for this ministry that has reached, I'm going to get the number wrong, 10 families and over 20 kids, with being able to bless them this summer while they're all perfect. Your name is written down, Cody. You better believe it, that your name is written down. So do not be surprised when we get to a normal worship service that I don't give you a tripod and a camera, because we're going. Because that's the direction that we're heading into. And it's going to be exciting, and I'm glad that I can be here to help Godfrey First through that, because like I said, at least I can limp us along until we get there. So yet again, the note I want to end on, go to Aaron's Usborne Party, support this new ministry. It's really exciting, and it's really something different. And folks, like Joe and I have been saying, different is going to be, that's what I'll say, Joe. Different is going to be the new norm, the new temporary norm. So it's going to be different, but that's okay. So if you've got time to support it, great. Also, randomly, if anybody's interested in the Minecraft thing I was talking about, let me know. I'm excited about that too. Joe, you got anything?
No, I'm good. Thanks everybody for joining us. It's a good discussion. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you. Double checking. Yeah, and if you need an invite to Usborne, message Aaron. I'm off here at 8 o'clock. Peace be with you, church.
Bye.